Hello, it's Paul Valencia and Tony Liberatore.
Hello.
And Cale Piland. I switched it up.
Wow.
You didn't even. I switched it all up.
You
Cale,
did.
you want to say hi? Because he's shocked.
Yeah, I got to collect myself here because you just totally changed.
Let me start all over then. 3, 2, 1. Hey, it's Paul Valencia from Clark County Today. This is the Clark County Today Sports Podcast with your hosts Tony Liberatore.
Yo.
And Cale Piland.
Hi, Paul.
Is that better? I don't know.
Sure.
Hey, we'll have fun with that.
We'll figure it out.
Tony is an associate principal at Fort Vancouver High School and a former assistant coach and athletic director. He's got a lot of titles.
He does.
Cale Piland is the athletic director for Evergreen Public Schools, which will come in handy today in our discussion with something that happened with Evergreen Public Schools and athletics. So we'll get into that. But he's also a former coach who's a top 10 coach of all time in Southwest Washington high school football.
I'm looking forward to talking about that, actually.
We're going to talk about that. Also, I'm getting an echo. Tony and Cale thinks it's okay, so I'm sorry if our audio isn't as perfect, but it's a little bit different for me, but hopefully you guys can hear us. Today we're going to be talking about some league championship. We got football going into week 8.
Yep.
Evergreen has a chance to win a league title on Friday night. We're going to do some process stuff with our athletic administrators here, talking about forfeits and appeals process and a new rule that came into play for Evergreen Public Schools. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And then I'm going to have a little rant because, as you guys know, I'm back on the sidelines. For years, I used to be on the sidelines of football games doing my play-by-play and my stats. But then when Twitter and social media came on, it was just easier to be up in the press box to do it all. Well, now I don't do as many game stories, so I'm back on the sidelines, and I'm seeing stuff that I don't like, and I'm gonna have a rant, and you guys can opine.
That's okay. Maybe that's just a new segment on here. Paul's rant of the week.
Positive Paul's rant.
Yeah,
that's the kind of an oxymoron.
It is.
Okay.
We'll make it like a compliment sandwich then.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Also, our friend Brian Levesque has compiled coaching records from Southwest Washington football.
It's over 104 years of records.
Yeah, all the way to the 1920s.
Yeah.
It's pretty flipping cool. We're going to get into that. Slow pitch softball is the first, state championship of the school year?
Yep.
Is that right, Cale?
That's accurate.
That's happening this week, and we've got a couple of teams. We'll say hi to them. We're going to ask for World Series picks from our brilliant baseball minds.
Thank you.
You're going to
Are
love
they here
mine.
yet?
And we'll talk about the NFL again and the Raiders, and Tony and I are crying, but Cale's back in first place.
Go Hawks.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
I'm done with the Raiders this year. I told you that. That's all about my first and second place fantasy teams.
yeah, I'm never done with the Raiders, but ouch. All right, let's get back. Week 8 of high school football.
Yep.
And so we have four leagues in Southwest Washington, for the most part. Yeah, 4A,
Yes.
GSHL, 3A, 2A, and the Trico League.
1A Trico.
The three of these leagues, they look like they're on a collision course. I mean, anything can happen week 8. We know it's high school football. Results can vary. But we know Seton Catholic Center collision course for week 9. We got Woodland and Ridgefield on a collision course for 2A GSHL for week 9. And then we got Camas and Skyview on a collision course for week 9. But there could be a league champion determined Friday night, and it's your old Evergreen Plainsmen, Cale. What can you say about the Evergreen Plainsmen
They've been taking care of business.
Yeah.
They've done what they needed to do to put themselves in that position, and great season for the Plainsmen so far.
Right, Tony, your thoughts on the 3A GSHL?
Just congrats to Coach Swain. He's a good man, and I worked with him at River, and what he's been able to do at Evergreen's been great.
Yeah, and now I always I don't know what the right word is. I discourage saying upsets in high school football because I have yet to see a sports book that has the odds for high school football.
And nor do I show you a couple on Twitter.
Oh no. But let's just say that Evergreen, if there was such a thing as a sports book for Southwest Washington football, would be heavily favored this week. Is that accurate, Cale?
I got 13 and a half.
Based off of records, yes, you could say that.
Okay.
Yes.
So if Evergreen takes care of business this week, they will be assured of at least a tie for the league title. Mm-hmm. And depending on another result, could grab the number 1 seed. But if Evergreen wins, I looked it up, Cale. Can you remember, without looking it up, the last time Evergreen won a league title?
The last outright league championship for the Plainsmen, I believe,
See, I know the answer to this.
97?
No, you said it wrong.
What?
You said it wrong, but I think you're on the right track.
I mean,
You said,
2007. Excuse
thank
me.
you. Yes.
2007.
When he said 7, I knew he was on the right track.
2007. Yes.
97.
Wait a minute.
And the
Yeah.
older I
Yeah.
get, man, yes, 90s, 2000s, yeah.
See, I did not throw him under the bus, Tony. Did you see that? I was
this-
nice. I said
this
he
week
was
you didn't.
right. He just misspoke, but I knew what he meant.
Yeah,
I wasn't
but
going to say.
You know why he didn't do that?
Why?
Because I live in Camas.
Oh,
So
I knew it. I knew there was some way he
was
was going to throw
something.
me under the bus. I knew it. But anyway, yes, 2007, Evergreen won the league title with Tom Smythe as the coach.
yeah.
And that's the last time. And there's been some good teams, but and some teams that had a lot of preseason hype in those years, but they just haven't been able to do it. And so, Christian Swain, congratulations. I hope I'm not saying it too prematurely.
Clark County Sports
Yeah.
Cast.
If you win Friday night, congratulations. Yeah.
So wait,
Golly, Paul,
real quick though,
this
you
doesn't
said
go right now. You are, oh my goodness.
they're playing Prairie. Is that what you said?
No,
They're
they
playing
played Prairie last week. They
Yep,
play Heritage.
They play Heritage.
Okay.
Which is why you weren't going to get me to say who would be the favorite.
I know.
Who would not be the favorite.
I understand. Cale is the athletic
Coach
director
Peterson
for
and the
all
Heritage
Evergreen
T-Wolves
schools.
believe that they can get it done this week.
And by the way, they've had a decent year. I mean, they've had a
No,
bounce back year. So
been
congratulations.
It has been a positive year for the Timberwolves.
Yes,
For sure.
and so, but I'm just going on records. I think Evergreen would would stun a lot of people if Evergreen doesn't win.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. So, but either way, win or lose for Evergreen on Friday, they would still have a chance to win a league title.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
So Prairie can still tie him, is what I'm getting at.
well,
Is that
there's
who it is, or Mountain View.
No, Mountain View and Kelso each have one loss,
Yes.
and Evergreen and Mountain View play each other in week 9.
Okay, that's what.
So
it
if
is.
Evergreen and Mountain View both win Friday, this for week 8, then week 9 would be for the number 1 seed.
Okay.
But if Evergreen wins this week, they will at least share a league title.
Correct.
Because
Okay. The co type
It'd
thing.
be co, yeah. Because
Okay.
the best Mountain View could do would be 1 loss, and Evergreen would be the worst, in that scenario. Yeah,
And you
so.
still have some wicked 3-way tiebreakers potentials, even for the league championship or for
One
second
seed?
place.
Oh, second place.
Yeah. So
Right.
there are some potential tiebreaker scenarios.
we'll do an
once
emergency
again
podcast
in
on
the,
those.
in the 3A GSHL.
An emergency podcast. Wow, that's a great idea. Well, also we've had a suggestion we should start doing weekly, at least maybe next week if we come back and do it, or at least start in the playoffs. We do every week. Who knows?
We just see how things go and what schedules are like. and-
Exactly.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, Tony and Cale are busy with real jobs, right?
Yeah, the massive income that we receive from doing this podcast does not outweigh my responsibilities to Evergreen Public Schools.
Hey,
no.
there's candy in the lobby
That's true.
that you guys can get
Yeah.
anytime you
I'm-
walk in.
Yes,
I'm
that's
waiting
true.
for a Clark County burger joint. Still to sponsor us.
In and
somehow,
Out
some way.
Burger's still a little bit ways off.
Maybe
but,
Shake Shack.
yeah.
Five Guys.
That'd be great. Okay, so now we're going to go to something, and we're going to go into the weeds of athletic administration. I'm not
wait.
sure if everyone knew about this, but some people might have known that Heritage and Mountain View played. Was it Heritage and Mountain View played? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heritage and Mountain View played a football game. Mountain View won the game, but a player on Mountain View was not supposed to play in the game, and he did. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, you know what, Cale? Just why don't you take it away before I say something dumb?
By WA rule, when a player is ejected from a contest, one of the things they have to do, part of the requirement for that is that they cannot participate participate in any contest until they have sat out a contest at the same level that the ejection took place in. So Mountain View had a player that was ejected the previous Friday. Was ejected in the first half of that contest. And so by rule, he needed to sit out the following game against Heritage. There was a misinterpretation of that rule and the fact that he had sat out the second half against Prairie because he had been ejected, that the interpretation was made by the school that he only needed to sit out the first half. Thus, one half, a full game.
Gotcha.
Which isn't the rule. It's
Right.
in college that applies, but in Washington State for high school sports that does not apply. So the fact that he had participated in the second half of that game, by rule, Mountain View had to initially forfeit that game.
Okay. Tony, I know this isn't your school district, but
Sure.
Your thoughts on what Cale just said?
My initial thought as an athletic administrator is that, need to know like those little fine details of the handbook, I guess.
Right. Gotcha.
Need to know the policies.
Yep. So, but there in the old days, and when the old days, it might even be just
2 years ago?
5 years ago, 2 years
Yeah.
ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, I think it's
It,
roughly.
it was
about
pretty
five.
much, that's the rule. You forfeit, and you did forfeit. But now there's a new rule that if everyone agree, or if you can show that the participation didn't change the result of the game, or
No,
how does that work?
Yeah, so there's an appeal process anytime an ineligible participant is used in a contest, and that could be for an example like this. It could also be a situation where you have a player who was academically ineligible and was erroneously played, or there was something within the clearance packet that hadn't been finalized.
An insurance form not signed, for example. Something like that.
Something along those lines. And so what the process in essence, what it comes down to is this. So when you appeal, you need to show, and this is the language that's in the handbook that I didn't necessarily know prior to this taking place, but in helping with, and it was, I was helping one school appeal their error against another one of my schools.
Right.
Yeah. That is so weird, by the way.
Yeah. In some ways it made it easier. In some ways it made it harder. But what the handbook says is that the school who's appealing needs to show that the preponderance of the evidence supports that the school would have, the outcome of the game would have been the same if the player had not participated at all.
Gotcha.
So it's not, did the player impact the game? Because how do you determine,
Right.
virtually anybody that steps on the field is going to have some sort of impact on the outcome of the game. But that the preponderance of the evidence would show that had this player not participated in this, so in this case, if he had not participated in the second half, and I think he played roughly 12 to 13 plays in the second half, if he hadn't have played, would the outcome have been the same? And so that is the question that the Greater St. Helens League first had to address, and then ultimately WI District 4 had to address. And in both cases, the evidence did support the fact that Mountain View would have won the game whether he had participated or not. So they did not have to forfeit the game.
Got it. So there will be lawyers. That's what it sounds like when you explain. When you preponderance.
Well,
I can't even pronounce that word.
You read through the handbook. There is a lot of
some legalese
that's in there for a number of things because, ultimately, and when we were talking, and this will be for a future podcast, but when we're talking about the transfer rules and whatnot, there are a lot of situations where individuals or schools will obtain attorneys to try to get an outcome that they want. So the handbook is very intentional in how it's written for that reason.
Right. So, Tony, I was going to ask you because the last time you were AD, the rule was probably different. This would have just been you're forfeiting, right?
Right.
So, your thoughts on the new rule?
I like it, and because it does do the league and then the WI district process, and I think that's a fair way to do it. But what I wanted to ask Cale, did District 4 just basically say if the league is good, we're good?
No, it was it was discussed.
Okay.
What District 4 didn't ask for that the league did ask for, was the ability to review game film and really look at. So every play that this individual participated in was looked at.
Had to cut it up and send it to him.
So you really had empirical evidence as to what was the score of the game when the player came in, what were the results of the plays collectively that this player participated in, and so you could make a very educated decision as to again answering that question. So the question you have to ask, so if he doesn't play at all, is it likely that is it more than likely, essentially, the preponderance of the evidence, that the outcome of the game would have been the same? And anybody that reviewed that information was able to really look at that and go, yeah, Mountain View, whether he would have played in the second half or not, Mountain View would have won the game.
Okay.
Yeah. I also like to point out that the athlete, we're not going to name the athlete here, but the athlete didn't go rogue and just put on his uniform and just run out of the field. There were these were adults who misinterpreted the rule.
Yeah, and so the question you asked Tony, so initially when I found out about it, I'm like, oh gosh, they got a forfeit. Mm-hmm. And then, as you research more within the handbook, you look at, well, no, there is this provision. And then the more you research what actually took place, you're like, oh, this actually fits that, which I think, because ultimately we do this for kids. And as the student athlete did not put himself in the game, and everybody else who participated in the game wasn't, that wasn't their decision or whatnot. So it really it didn't punish kids for a misinterpretation that they didn't make. It was a misinterpretation that was made by adults. It didn't punish kids. And I think anytime you can have something in place that allows for that to be corrected, I think is a good thing within high school athletics for sure.
Did both or one of the principals have to write a letter?
No. So, there's information that's gathered, and so Mountain View had to explain their error. Heritage was asked for their input as to what, and so again, you have to. So when you're asking those questions, you just have to be focused on the one question that the WIA is asking to determine whether or not the forfeit should be overturned. And even so, when Heritage looked at the plays and everything, they were of the opinion that yes, the outcome of the game would have been the same if this player had not participated.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
It's amicable.
Well, it's helpful. It's helpful. There were still. I don't know if hurt feelings are the right way. There were some other conversations that were had around the issue, but ultimately you have to come, like I said, the only question that needed to be answered was the one that the WI uses to determine whether or not a forfeit should be overturned.
So the NCAA phrase of lack of institutional control did not.
No, that was not utilized.
So Mountain View has not received the death penalty in the GSHL. Is that
no,
right?
and it was very easy to determine there was no intent by Mountain View, and there was not an attempt to gain a competitive advantage in any way. But again, that necessarily that's not the question that you have to answer in this situation in determining whether or not. Now, I don't know how many times that the state has had situations where this has been applied. It's the first time I've heard it at a District 4 meeting. I can see there being some very, very contentious, like this one, when you looked at the empirical data, it was easy to determine. But man,
could you imagine a 3-point game?
Well, yes.
He makes one tackle. He makes one tackle.
Right. Yeah, so I think what's normally going to happen in these situations, it has to be cut and dry. Like you have to really be able to, like if there had been any gray area, it probably wouldn't have been overturned.
Yeah.
But and the rule is designed for these situations where it is cut and dry, that the outcome would have been the same.
Right. And when I said death penalty, everybody, I don't want to trigger anybody. That's an old sports term that the three of us understand because it happened at SMU, NCAA, and but they don't use that term anymore. But it used to be called the death penalty.
Well, the NCAA doesn't have any standing in on anything anymore anyway.
Exactly.
So what does it matter?
They're just selling TV rights.
That's right.
Okay, so thank you for that, Cale. That was
thanks, Cale.
It's not easy to talk about one.
No, and I think
your school
Tony
too.
Tony can attest to this. Show me an AD who hasn't misinterpreted something or made a mistake. I don't.
A lot of self-reports.
Yeah.
I thought Tony was raising his hand. Like, he's never made a mistake.
Everybody who sat in that AD chair has made an error of some sort from time to time.
Tony, when was the last time you were an AD? What year, roughly?
2018-19 school year.
Okay, so he should wear a T-shirt. Hasn't made an athletic mistake since 2019.
But you forgot that I was filling in a little bit at Fort Vancouver, and
that's true.
I did do one.
Yeah,
even in that 2 weeks.
All right, I don't want to know about it now.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. I've got a Paul Valencia rant.
Oh boy, here we go.
So again, for years and years, I was on the sidelines doing my play-by-play, and I could hear crazy stuff on the sidelines, and it was just one of those things you don't report, most of it. But then for years, I went up to the press box. Well, now I'm back on the sidelines, and I'm just watching games, kind of observing for my features or whatever I'm going to be writing about each Friday night. It's not a game story, but I'm back to hearing so much griping, so much whining from assistant coaches on almost every play. That's holding. That's holding. Oh, it drives me insane. Coaches? Most of the head coaches don't.
They're probably calling.
They do sometimes. Don't get me wrong. They don't. In fact, the head coach I saw recently actually had to tell his own assistants, "Hey, relax. I saw it too, but they didn't see it." And so, but it just drives me nuts because it looks like you're making excuses. If you're the losing team, it's like you're making excuses. And if you're the winning team, it looks like really bad sportsmanship. So I'm not going to mention the teams because it's been happening all year at almost every place I've gone to. But I'll just say recently there was a game where, and by the way, I always go one quarter. The first quarter I go on one sideline, and the second quarter I always roam the other sideline because I don't want anyone like Cale to think that I'm playing favorites with anybody.
We all know week 9 which sideline Paul's going to be on.
I'll be on both sidelines.
Nope, that's La Center this year.
Might even be La Center. La Center and Seton Catholic.
True.
But anyway, I was in the first quarter. I was in one game, and it's holding on every play, and it was crazy. So one team had this is another funny thing. Week 7. It kept happening throughout the game. The officials kept sending players off for wearing their equipment wrong. Either they didn't have their knee pads over their knee, or something about armbands being not, wristbands. It was so funny. One team had a player get sent off. The player who came in to take his spot was then sent off for the exact same infraction.
You're out too.
Oh, shoot.
And it's going. So it's like the third player came on, and that's how they do it. That's how the officials do it. So then I was on the other sideline, and the exact same thing happened to the other team, and the assistants coaches are yelling, "Hey, that's delay a game. You're giving them more time to do a play." And I'm like, don't you realize that you guys just had the same thing happen, and you didn't get a delay game? But it drives me nuts when they're wrong, too, when the assistant coaches are wrong about it, because the officials, once they blow a whistle to send someone off, they stop the play clock, if there is a play clock, or they stop counting on all this stuff. But anyway, I saw a team that was up by some 30 points, and they're just screaming at the refs all the time. And it looks bad. It just looks bad, but it also makes me feel like it gives the student athletes, well, if my coaches are doing it, why can't I argue? And I go back. We've done this many times on the podcast. We are not increasing the numbers of officials. We are losing officials.
Right.
And I think the adults need to send a better message.
There you go.
Perception.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There was a referee at the.
We're not the writer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I got Raiders CTE. Hitting my head against the wall for all season. But there's an official last week, the white hat, who retired 2 years ago. Retired from officiating 2 years ago. And yet the association begged him to come back last year, and they begged him to come back this year because they don't have enough officials. And we've got assistant coaches, and I know you're wearing those. I wear silver and black glasses when I'm watching my Raiders. I know that, and I know your assistant coaches are invested in wins, and you just want anything for an advantage. But Tony, I was going to ask you, as a former assistant football coach, were you guilty of this? Or
in fact, I give white hats nicknames when I'd call them out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You gave.
I was chastised for the nicknames. I'm not kidding.
All right.
But
I didn't expect that to happen.
To your extent, to your point, And I'll even fast forward. So as AD one time, like at River, we did a lot of different sort of team building, program building things all through the athletic department. And one point of emphasis was to, games or sportsmanship, and let the officials officiate, let players play, all. And I remember we were at Hawkinson and just missed a call, and I went like, that is unbelievable. Like, I'm AD. That's unbelievable. I cannot believe this. And I was walking up down the sideline, and one of the players said, Mr. Lib, you cannot, like, one of the kids called me out.
He's checking
and I'll
you.
never forget that. He checked me. He's like, we need this game. You have to be quiet.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
That's
a positive Paul Player of the Week right there from 2016 or whatever it was.
That was probably 18.
Okay.
17 or 18.
Whoever that was, you're my retroactive
Yes, I won't
Player
name
of the
his
Week.
name, but I have seen him since then, and
That's really cool,
Yes.
though. But it was,
he said,
and by the way, as I did my rant there, I should say that almost every assistant coach has the best interest of their kids at heart. I mean, come on, they're not doing it to get rich. They're doing it because they love football and they love the athletes. I'm just saying that sometimes when it's just every play, it just
yes,
and everybody understands a big play in a 3-point game, and there's a blown call or a call you think should be made. There's going to be emotion, but I'm talking about it's a 25, 30-point game, and you're still whining about every call. Drives me nuts, and it looks bad. Cale, you were, I made the joke that I don't know if you ever were an assistant coach. You just became head coach as soon as you got out of college. But I know you were an assistant coach somewhere, somehow. I don't remember where.
At Evergreen.
Yeah, before my time.
So the answer to did I ever do that as an assistant coach would be no, because I was in the box.
He asked somebody else to do it.
I didn't have that. I did not have the privilege of doing that as an assistant coach. But I do have a couple of thoughts in regards to that. One, high school football coaching staffs have expanded considerably.
Yes.
And sometimes I think there are probably some assistant coaches who don't do much on Friday night, don't have much of a responsibility on Friday night as to who as a position they're coaching or whatnot. And so this may or may not be a way for them to feel like they are a part of the game, or that they're interacting, or that are showing that they have knowledge. So that concerns me a little bit. Because I never wanted to, when I was a head coach, if I didn't have something for somebody to do, even though maybe they wanted to coach or they wanted to volunteer, I had to have a role for you. I wouldn't just, allow anybody who wanted a polo and wanted to be on the sideline Friday night to be there. And this was one of the reasons. And I was always very intentional. I will not say that I didn't have assistants at times who did have some outbursts with officials, but I was very intentional in talking to them that, look, I'm the one, as the head coach, I am the one who's going to communicate with officials. Whether you think that there has been a missed call or not, that is not your role. For two reasons. One, I didn't want to create a perception of exactly what you're talking about, that my coaching staff, that we were a bunch of whiners. Right. And two, it was important to me, especially as I had more experience, you develop relationships with officials, whether that be the official who's on your sideline or the white hat or anybody. So you develop these relationships, and I didn't want to jeopardize those relationships because of the way my staff was being perceived with officials. So there were times, not many, but there were times that I would get after some officials. Like if you're misinterpreting, if you don't know the rule, that's a real problem. Or if you're misapplying a rule, in my opinion. Or if calls are significantly going one way or the other. So, but there's kind of an art to that I always felt as the head coach I needed to manage with that relationship, and especially in that game, how that was going with the officials, and having an assistant who was complaining to a fit. Well, no. That you're not I'm the one that's in charge here, and so you are not representing how I'm feeling about how our interaction with these officials are going. So that's just simply not your role. Excuse me. And so sometimes, I just feel like it has more to do with I'm going to show that I have knowledge here or I have influence on this game, when really it should be the head coach. The head coach should be the only one talking to officials.
Isn't it? I'm trying to remember the WIA. In football especially, it's still the head coach is the one that gets kicked out, even if the
100%. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, no,
so
you're
they're
not
the ones missing the game, even if the assistant
yes.
gets the flag.
Yes.
That would be interesting.
And technically, assistant coaches aren't supposed to talk to officials.
Right.
That can be flagged, and at times I have seen it flagged.
Yep. And Mr. AD over there, I have actually seen an AD get flagged and cost Evergreen a game in 2005 or 6, something like that.
No. It was after that because I was I was at Union at that point in time.
So it must have been 7.
I think it was 2000. I think it was 2007.
Yeah.
See, AD got the flag?
Yes.
We will not name names.
Yes.
Sure.
But the AD.
I don't remember that.
It was actually Tom. It was the first game at Evergreen since Union. So we weren't playing them, but I think they were playing Central Catholic.
They were playing Central Catholic. Yes.
Steve Pine coached Central Catholic team, and the athletic director got a 15-yard penalty.
Yes. So
you're
lucky. You're lucky. One of your players stopped you.
One of the players stopped. Yeah. I'll always remember that.
Could have been you, Tony.
It could have been me.
Speaking of old-time coaches, so we can move on from my rant now. Old-time coaches and present-day coaches. We've got our friend Brian Levesque, who compiles it's at scores.gshlfootball.com. He's got all the results of every high school football game you could think of, dating back to the 20s and 30s and 40s for some of these schools.
Yeah.
And then of course he keeps the standings current, the current standings. So he's got all kinds of those records. Well, he decided, because he's Brian and clearly has.
Well, I asked him about Kaiser.
Yeah.
I said, how many wins?
Yeah.
And then he did that in the next 12 hours.
Yeah. I think Brian, we have 24 hours in a day. Brian has like 55 hours in a day, because this guy, I don't think he sleeps.
I was going to say, imagine how much more you could do if you just didn't sleep.
And I don't think Brian sleeps, because he put together something that coaches, a list of every coach who's coached in Southwest Washington, well, mostly Clark County, but he does have the Kelso coach in there, and he's got Sean McDonald and
he's got multiple coaches.
Yeah,
basically
he's got Kalama, and he's got Kalama's record in there. But bottom line is, if you've coached in or around Southwest Washington, he's got the entire list of all the wins. But it doesn't count the wins of any coach who's coached somewhere else. For example, Cale, you're 9th in Southwest Washington with how many wins was it?
Was it 115? I got it right here.
Yeah.
It's 115.
115. But you would have 117 total?
Yep, those 2 W's we got in Kirkland, Washington at Juanita High School.
Yeah, and I think I'm getting the glare that I think you were.
There's no glare.
You were only the coach for 2 games, right? I think it was something like you didn't go 2-7. There's no way Cale Piland went 2-7.
Oh no, we went 2-7.
Yes, they did.
And some might say we were lucky to get 2.
They went 2-7, and then for whatever reason, Evergreen gave him the job anyway, and then he's a state champion a few years later. What a guy! Yeah. But anyway, so for anyone asking, John Eagle, 213 wins
in Clark
County. That includes Evergreen and then Camas. So he's number 1 on the list. Number 2 is John Lambert at La Center, and all of those wins are at La Center. 191 wins. So what does that make it? 9 plus 3, 22 wins away? No, did I do that right?
Yes, that's 22.
22 wins away.
22.
So. And then the late John O'Rourke, 155. Oh, that's amazing. John O'Rourke and Gary Boggs tied at 155.
Yep.
So they're tied for looks like 4th place. And then Steve Kaiser, 152, or is it now 153? I don't know.
This was updated, I think, as of last Saturday.
So pretty awesome stuff. Cale, you're number 9, 115 wins.
If I'd only stuck with it.
And and then you got out when you were like 29, right? I always try to make him younger than he is. But you do realize that if you had kept going, you'd be up there now. You'd be 1, 2, or 3 now.
Yeah, probably. I mean, who knows? We might have fallen off a cliff.
That's true.
Let talent would have run out, and then people would have stopped winning in spite of my coaching.
Yeah, and then Rick Steele rounds out the number 10 spot at 112, and he's now an assistant coach. He helps out with I think Hudson's Bay.
He's at Bay.
And but Adam Matheson is at 11, and he's climbing. He's climbing fast. Yeah, he's
going to have some longevity. He's going to be at the top of that list.
He's gonna pass Rick and you.
No
unless
question.
maybe he wins a state title this year and just says that's it. I'm going out on top, right? And then maybe you could convince him to stop so you can stay. But you should be in the top 10, Cale, at least for a few more years.
Good. I will rest easy tonight.
And then if you look at some of these, right? You mentioned Lambert.
Yes.
He won't get to 200 this year.
Right.
But next year,
yep,
he will. Kaiser if Skyview gets a good run,
yep,
he'll pass Coach O'Rourke and Coach Boggs.
Yep.
Adam next year he'll be able to.
Well, so what does that put Kai's at the end of the year? Because we know, according to Paul, he's going to go 1-1 in these final two games.
So
right?
he'll be at 153. He's got to win week 10.
He's not getting to 154, so he's going to have to. So if he's at 153, he's got to win 3 playoff games.
Yep.
Okay. Or 2. Yeah. He's gonna. If he wins this week, then
he's at 153.
Then he needs to win 2 playoff. Week 10 and week 11, right?
Well, that would put him. That would tie him. If he's going to pass him, he's got.
Exactly. Wait, hey man.
And then on this list, and Brian did say we could make it public.
Right.
When we.
I think so. Yeah. Scores.gshlfootball.com has all of that other stuff. I'm not sure.
I don't know if he put a link out, but I've asked him if I can put the Google Doc link with the podcast link.
Okay, so we'll try to do that. We'll try to do that.
But visit Brian. Brian he did great yeoman's work, and I was I thought it would take him 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And in hours, he's like, "Here's what I got for you." And
he's a whiz, and it's such a cool thing to look at. There's
coaches, 275 head coaches.
There's coaches who coached in the 1920s. He's got listed, and then one of my favorite things. I went to high school with Steve Pine, coach at Union now, and I think he won 17 state titles in Oregon, maybe not, maybe 4, but it was a lot of state titles in Oregon, and he's got all these wins in Oregon, and because they're rebuilding at Union, and he just got to Union, and he's got 1 win right now. So Steve Pine is listed all the way down at the bottom, 1 win,
1 win,
and he's one of the greatest coaches in Northwest high school football history. But it's Southwest Washington, baby, only 1 win, and so you are ranked in the low 200s right now.
He's
Steve
tied at
Pine.
242nd.
Yeah.
So you want a funny story about Brian Levesque?
Okay.
So he played football for Johnny Eagle at Evergreen.
Yes.
And I think this was the year before, maybe 2 years before it was before I got there as an assistant with John. Because then Brian ended up coming back and working with us. So it might have been even 4 or 5 years before that. But so it was before a game, and John had he had his players go out. I forget where they were, but everybody go out and get a stick or like a twig from off of a tree or whatever. And the idea is you bring one and you break it, but then once you put everybody's together, you can't. It's too strong. You can't break them for all you. Yeah, Levesque came back with a tree trunk.
He did, didn't he?
Everybody's come back with stick, and Levesque drags this tree trunk in. That
sounds like Brian.
Once you get to know Brian, yep, that sounds like something as a high school football player he might do.
And I might have said this story about Brian. This has nothing to do with what you just said, but I might have already said this on the podcast before. I'm getting old. I don't remember these things, but we once drove to a Raider game in Oakland. And I bought, I was driving, whether he went or not, but I had an extra ticket. He said, let's go. So we went. But I bought Sirius XM radio to listen to music or whatever I wanted to listen to all day. It's an 11-hour drive, and I don't think I heard one song. And I said maybe 10 words. Brian is a talker. The reason
great co-pilot, though, for a trip like that,
awesome.
right?
I was going to say,
the reason he's not on our podcast is because we need to keep it under 3 hours. So, no, he'll be a guest soon, but he's great. We love Brian, and he knows.
Thank you, Brian.
He knows we can.
Hey, just one more
connection
connection here, just because Paul, you asked Cale about this earlier, right? So, both Cale and John Eagle are on here. Cale was on John Eagle's staff for a little bit, so that's cool. And then just to take that back a step further, Coach Eagle, his offensive line coach, at River was Coach O'Rourke.
Okay.
And his head coach, Ed Maxwell, is number 24 on here. So just those Clark County connections. That's what I like to see on here. Rick Steele coached John Lambert at Bay. Back, in the late 80s. So again, just those types of.
It's really cool. And
of things.
You know what I love? John Eagle still loves Camas and still loves, following Southwest Washington football, because he's on social media and he'll tweet out something, and it's kind of cool. So obviously he's coaching at West Lynn and has a great program over there in Oregon. I think he won one state title a couple years back. Did he win?
I think they've won two.
With Eagle?
He's won at least one.
Okay.
But he might. I can't remember.
Yeah, because I think Central won last year. So
that's true. Central did. Maybe it was just one.
So
yes.
it might have been he won the one and beat Central in the semifinals.
Right.
Because again, both those coaches were Clark County residents. So we did that story.
Oh, right.
Because Steve Pine has lived in Clark County for many years, just hasn't come to the big time and coached in Southwest Washington until this year, which is why he's only got one win on his coaching record. I'm sorry, Steve. I love you, man. So let's. I'm gonna get in trouble.
Kel's gonna want to hit a reset on that one.
Yeah.
Opinions stated by Paul Valencia on this program are not those of Evergreen Public Schools.
I used to joke with Pine all the time. When are you going to come to Southwest Washington where they know how to really play football? And and all. So anyway, he's done it. But all right, sorry, Steve. Love you. Let's move on before I get in more trouble. Hey, the first state championships of this school year are happening this weekend, right? Slow pitch softball.
Yep.
And so it's a quick shout out to Skyview, the number 2 seed in the 4A bracket, and Columbia River is the 3 seed in the 3A, 2A bracket. But what's really interesting about this sport, and I don't know how it became, but it's owned by Tri-Cities and Spokane for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Were they doing it a lot sooner than everyone else?
No.
Because as a non-sanctioned
It's just
sport,
because they don't have gutters on their houses. You think I'm joking? That's the correlation I've made today. That's what it is.
Because I'm telling you
gutters.
that in slow pitch softball has been 2019 or 2020. I think 19 was the first year sanctioned.
It was 13.
No,
not state.
I'm sorry.
You're talking state.
I'm talking about state sanctioned WIA.
It was right around then. You're right.
19.
Yeah.
And every championship game has been Tri-Cities or Spokane has won. We've had teams make it to the championship game, but then just get do they have 10-run rules in slow pitch? I don't even know, but it's been lopsided scores. And hey, good luck to the Clark County teams. But I was going to ask Cale and Tony, what are you guys going to do as administrators to kill the East and Tri-Cities, rule? What are you going to do? How are you going to help Southwest Washington?
I'll let Tony answer that.
Make sure the Tri-Cities and Spokane have gutters. I don't know. I don't know what it is right now.
But it is weird, that they
they clearly have
things. I don't. So it's been an interesting. Slow pitch has been an interesting thing over here. There's been some of it where there are some schools where it's just kind of fun. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes where there's been kind of some friction is not all schools have the benefit of having their fast pitch players play.
Right.
And there's been some battle with club softball around that, as the fear that it's going to mess your swing up or whatnot. And my response to that has been, well, if you're a right-handed hitter and you're worried about messing your swing up, just play slow pitch left-handed. And so it's clearly it's not messing up the fast pitch players from the east side of the state. So I think that's played a little bit into our success level at state. But other than that, I don't really know.
I've talked to some fast pitch coaches who love the idea that if their fast pitch players play slow pitch, they're going to get better at defense because the ball's in play all the time. Yeah. And in fast pitch, there's games with the dominant pitcher where
you could be real bored out in the field.
You're not bored if you're playing third base in slow pitch.
No, it's coming. It's coming hard.
That's true.
So anyway, we wish Skyview and Columbia River the best of luck. So. All right, now I guess we can move on to the world of professional sports and maybe college. I don't know, but the World Series starts Friday? I don't know. They seem to take 3 weeks. Well, they take so much time in between series,
which makes a lot of sense because now you're going to be playing the World Series potentially into November,
right?
In New York.
Yeah.
I mean, what could go wrong?
Exactly.
Right.
But You guys, I'm afraid to ask for your predictions because I think about a year ago someone here predicted that Ohtani was going to be a Mariner.
It wasn't me. There's no way. I knew they weren't spending that money.
I don't know. I think one of you at least said it was possible.
Thinking. Well, anything's possible. The Raiders could still win the Super Bowl. It's
I
possible.
said it was never going to happen, and you guys said, whoa, you guys pumped the brakes on that. It could happen. It could happen. No, it was never going to happen.
All right. Maybe I had my Mariners glasses on. But
So anyway, I'll let you go. Tony, who do you think's going to win the World Series?
Anybody but the Yankees. Thank you.
Okay. Cale?
I want both teams to lose.
You want both teams to lose. All right.
Not anybody to win. I want both teams to lose.
So that's kind of like, when it's the Chiefs and the Niners for me.
Yes,
which
there
has
you
happened
go.
twice in the last 4 or 5 years. It's been horrible. Gosh. But I got to say, for Fernando, I'm going for the Dodgers.
Yeah,
I'm rooting for the
like that.
Dodgers.
That's a good point.
If I was forced to pick a team, I would choose the Dodgers. I mean, the Yankees. There are two franchises in professional sports that I loathe. One of them is the Yankees. The other are the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm not a huge Dodger fan by any means, but I like Mookie Betts. I like Ohtani.
Yeah.
And that's. I would love for Ohtani to get one. That's pretty cool.
And for me, I mean, I don't love baseball as much as I used to, but I follow it enough. But when I was 10 years old, it was at 81, right? Yep. Fernando Mania was
cool.
I mean, and then it's always tough when somebody dies and they re-show the stats and stuff. It's like first 7 or 8 games.
First 8 of his career.
complete game.
Yes.
Complete game. Just bam.
All 1 run or less.
Yeah. I read something too. Whatever, it might have been that World Series. He threw like 147 pitches.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine anybody in a World Series? No, that's never going to happen. Right. So Garrett Cole isn't going.
No,
you might see a game where he goes 115-ish,
maybe one,
and that would have to be like Game 7,
yes.
and he's rolling. But you're never going to see that again.
So here's my pitch. I think it was 30 for 30 did something on Fernando Mania a long time ago.
Yeah,
so
I've seen it.
So I'm just throwing that out there. If you don't know what Fernando Mania is, go watch that because it was insane. And he was the most popular athlete for about 2 or 3 months in the country, if not the world.
Well, and that's what's weird. That's also the baseball strike year. So they had that little gap in between. They did a first half champ and a second half champ.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right, NFL. So yes, I am going to Allegiant Stadium this weekend to see the Raiders and the Chiefs. Tony, what are my chances of walking out of there happy?
Slim to none, and Slim just left town. I don't see the Raiders. Their offense is. Listen, I watched 162 Mariners games offense, and the Raiders' offense, correlation-wise, is worse.
Yeah,
it's worse.
We're like Julio running sideways when we're trying to get in the end zone, and we just run
when
out of
he's
bounds.
at third base and the bat comes at his neck. Yes.
I'm sorry.
The Chiefs are due. They're due to have a dud.
They're 6-0.
The last team to beat the
have a dud, right?
The last team to beat the Chiefs.
Thank you, the Las Vegas Raiders.
Merry Christmas, Christmas miracle.
Yes,
that was awesome.
Yes.
Didn't score an offensive touch. Speaking of our offense, didn't score an offensive touchdown that game.
Well, stuff like that's going to have to happen if you're going to see a win.
Exactly.
The 2 defensive touchdowns were like 5 minutes real time. Too.
No, I think it was one. I think it was back-to-back plays.
Were they
I think it was touchdown, kickoff, and touchdown. I think it was. So remember, we don't win much, so I remember I remember all the details. But it's been rough. But I always say I'd still rather go. I've never regretted going to a game. I just regret a lot of the results. And no, this one is. I mean, I can talk myself into a lot of potential. Okay, if things go right, we could win this game. It's really hard to think that they're gonna be motivated because they did get crushed by their offense got crushed by the Raider defense last Christmas, and Andy Reid's going to have them remember. So
they're going to do that circle wing T play.
I'm just hoping that. I know. I don't think they're going to overlook us. Is my
point. The question is, what are the Raiders on the money line?
Oh, I haven't even looked.
I haven't either.
On the money line for that game. I mean, if you put a small wager on that and they hit it,
that's true.
Maybe you could pay Tony and I a salary off of that.
I'll look into that. I'll
Look into that, Paul.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Exactly. So, yeah, but hey, your Seahawks, though.
We're back, baby. We're back.
You're in first place. Half of the Niners are injured.
Yeah.
Seriously?
They're dropping like flies. McCaffrey's going to come back, though.
You think he will? That's
He is.
post
I think
Thanksgiving.
he's coming back. So the fact, and the NFL is doing this. I mean, the Seahawks, and there are multiple teams. There are 2 other teams, I think, that have had to do it, and there are multiple teams that are going to have to do it over the course of the year. But they played 3 games in 10 days.
Right.
Was it a Monday game and then a Sunday? and a
Sunday,
Thursday?
Monday, Thursday. So,
Okay. Yeah.
so I mean, excuse me,
Monday, Sunday.
Monday,
Thursday.
Sunday, Thursday. Yeah,
Got it,
that's what
got
it was. Yeah, and you know, I understand that, but that's not good.
Right,
And
right.
so my hope, my optimism is that because they were already beat up going into the Detroit game, which was the Monday night game, and they competed really well with the team that looks like it's probably the best in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
And then came back and laid an egg against the Giants at home, and then you're on life support essentially going into that Thursday game against the Niners. So then you get your mini bye, and they look like a completely different team this last Sunday. So
Right.
They really did.
yeah, it was like oh.
First place is first place. I don't care if it's
Right,
4-3
no,
or 5-1.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Your
in
record,
the NFL.
you are what your record says you are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, congratulations, Cale, on
Well, I
winning
had a lot to do with that.
being in first
I had
place
a lot
in
to do with that.
7 weeks.
Blazers start tonight, don't they?
Yeah, they play Golden State. They play Golden State. I'm going Friday.
Nice.
Oh, cool. That's right. I've seen you at a few Blazer games. Yeah. And, NBA. Wow, crazy. Yeah, we had the LeBron and the Bronny moment last night. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, that
Come
feels a little
on.
contrived for me.
Well, what was what irritated me about
I
it
know what you're going to say.
I know.
was they were doing the Griffey
Yes.
comparison. And like, no.
No.
Ken Griffey Jr. was the #1 overall pick in Major League Baseball and was a phenom.
Yeah, and Ken Griffey Sr. was a great player too
And
in his time.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Was an all-star.
still could play.
Multiple
Yes.
times.
He wasn't in the majors just so they could pair him up. You know what I mean? But now, on the flip side, LeBron is still awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
Even at his age, he is still awesome.
I mean, I feel bad for Bronny. I mean, it's just like it's like nobody. I don't know if it's just the LeBron bubble that he's living in, and he thinks that no, nobody feels like this kid belongs in the. Like he's a G League at best. He's a G League player right now.
I'm going to zag when everyone's zigging, though.
Okay.
But I'm going to give, I think, is it Brian Windhorst? Is that the
Yeah.
ESPN
ESPN.
Yeah.
LeBron beat writer? So he said something that opened my eyes, is that Bronny was the 55th pick in the NBA draft, and he's bringing energy and excitement to their 40-year-old or 39-year-old superstar. And for an 82 game season, you're never going to draft no 55th player ever drafted is ever going to make, that kind of an impact of bringing energy and some positive energy to your team. And I thought that's interesting. As a 55th pick, he's making a positive impact. So I can't take credit for that, but it opened my eyes to go maybe. But I did not like bringing out Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr. yesterday.
It's not the same
It's
thing.
not the same thing. No,
The
it
tweet I saw, it was Bronny is more Craig Griffey than Ken Griffey.
Well, yes,
Correct?
That's
Yeah.
and one might make the argument that Craig Griffey was a better baseball player than
Bronny is baseball,
as a
correct.
basketball player. Right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, best of luck to the LeBron James family. How's that? I'll just be nice and be positive.
yeah,
Nancy.
no,
No,
nobody wishes any ill will.
No,
I know.
it's
but
cool,
it's just,
Yeah.
it's just like I'm trying to figure. If I'm, if you're the 11th, 12th, 13th guy on the Lakers and you're watching this. I mean, what are you thinking? Right?
Yeah.
I guess I'm not LeBron James's kid, so that's
Exactly.
what I guess I'm thinking.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we've touched everything we wanted to. Anything you wanted to add? Oh, Tony's got something.
Did we go over the week 9 scenarios? Because we won't.
Well, week 9 scenarios are most likely.
I mean, no, you did. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You
we
did.
did. We
My
did.
bad.
It just they're on collision courses for a great week 9.
Yes, my bad.
And there's only one of me, so I don't know where I'm going to be. I think I know where I'm going to be, but I
Don't announce it. Don't
haven't
jinx
made
it.
the official decision just yet. But wow, I mean yeah, the Center Seton Catholic game is so huge because the winner of that should get the 2 seed for the state.
Yeah, I mean,
For week 10. Yeah.
And the loser of that, who knows, gets 3, 4, 5, or 6, and then may have to play Royal earlier than the state championship game. So that's why week 9 means so much if they're going to continue. But whew, we'll see about that. Yeah, that's crazy. All right. Hey, everybody. Great chatting with you. Tony, you want to say goodbye?
See you.
Cale?
Thank you.
Bye, Cale.
Paul Valencia signing off. Take care, everybody.